are not dreamers, we are not deluded, we are not naive. Rather, we are believers together in the redemptive power of love. A love of our sisters and brothers, north and south, rich and poor. For in the threat of climate change, we see the possibility of a better world. A world in which all shall be included in the feast of life. A world in which hope triumphs over despair. A world in which justice reigns.
I'm here at the WAVE climate protest in London. The WAVE protest is to mark the beginning of the UN negotiations for climate change in Copenhagen. As you can see, the atmosphere is buzzing here as things heat up. People are creating their own renewable heat source. So I'm going to get in amongst it and ask some questions about climate change, particularly New Zealand and its climate campaign. Hi, what's your name?
Lewis.
Lewis. What do you know about New Zealand and its climate change policies?
Not too much, to be honest with you, so I'm more focused on the UK.
Are you hopeful that things are going to change at the Copenhagen climate negotiations?
I hope so. I hope they agree on something that's actually going to be worthwhile and not kind of all a big farce, you know? So I'm really hoping.
Can I ask you, what do you do on a day-to-day basis to reduce your carbon footprint?
I cycle to work, I recycle, I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat any meat.
I found a Kiwi in the crowd. What's your name?
Katherine.
Katherine, can I ask you, what do you do to reduce your carbon footprint?
I avoid going to the supermarket. I get an organic veggie box every week, which means it reduces the packaging and it reduces the transport emissions and it reduces, well, it keeps it local, so it means that stuff's not being transported all around the world. I try to minimise my flights and I monitor the energy use in my house using an online tool which tells me how much gas and electricity I'm using every week.
Here I am with the Greenpeace contingency. What do you do on a day-to-day basis to reduce your carbon footprint?
I try and locally source my food, so find out where my food comes from, trying to cut down my flights. I don't drive, cycle, it's the usual sort of things. It's a doable thing.
Are you aware of any of New Zealand's climate change policies?
I understand they're trying to put through some climate change legislation at the moment.
We have a Prime Minister at the moment. He's kind of reducing our carbon emissions by 2020 by about 10 to 20%. And you might know that scientists are saying that, you know, this needs to be 40%.
No, this needs to be a lot more.
What are you doing with the orange tentacled thing behind us?
Holding a ginormous squid. I'm not completely sure. I think it's to do with the environment and protecting nature and promoting that, I believe, yes.
Right, so it's protecting endangered species? Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So can I ask you where you're from?
From Gloucester, in the west of England. So we've got there a transition group that is locally organising to try to cut carbon emissions, realising the government can do some things, but we have to do things as well.
So scientists say rich countries must reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 25 to 40%. New Zealand could reduce their emissions by 40%, but our Prime Minister has a highly conditional emissions reduction target of 20%. What do you think of that?
Seems quite, it's like they're in denial out there. It's almost like no one wants to really take the first big step towards it.
But I've heard that your targets are more like 38% by 2020.
Yeah, they've got high targets, but, you know, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens in Copenhagen. Can I ask you what you do to reduce your carbon footprint on a day-to-day basis?
The first thing we've done is to move to a much smaller house with lower levels of consumption. We're going to do an eco-refit. We've got to put extra insulation in the loft, insulate the walls because they're only 6 inches thick, put in double glazing, have solar panels. Of course, you guys in New Zealand, you've got a lot more sun than we've got, so you could do a lot of solar stuff.
Do you know anything about New Zealand's climate policy?
I don't know about climate policy either in New Zealand or Australia, except that they seem to want to turn their back on the realities. What combines everybody together is the realization that it's our children who are going to reap the disbenefits of the greed that we have now. We hope that the politicians from around the world listen to us.
Indeed.
Fantastic.
Enjoy your march.
I gather you're a great singer. Well done.
Our Prime Minister has a highly conditional emissions target of 10 to 20%, well below what our scientists are saying is needed by 2020. New Zealand, like Britain, is a small country. We could do better.